When I met with President Trump, I saw the bust of Martin Luther King. I said, "You have Martin Luther King in here." He said, "Yeah, they said I took it out. I didn't take it out." I said, "Okay, I'm just impressed that you have Martin Luther King's bust in your office."
The original, though,
Yeah.
like, the
Yeah.
original art and the original,
Yes.
just priceless things.
Yes.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Meeting with the Manager. I'm City Manager Erik Tungate. On this month's show, I have the honor and privilege of welcoming in Congressmember Brenda Lawrence from the 14th Congressional District. We will be discussing many things, including all of the dealings in Washington, D.C., and what we can expect to impact us here in the city of Oak Park. Thank you for joining me, and let's get started. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's such an honor and privilege to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here. Oak Park is just a really special place. The history, the diversity of the community, the strength of your branding of being a home and being a community and place to live has been consistent, and a lot of communities can't say that. So I'm glad to be here and to represent you in Congress.
And we're glad too. And I have to start right off the top here, getting right into it, but I have to butter you up a little bit and speak directly to you. Do something that, you and I have talked about this before, but you do something that very few federal officials do. You meet regularly with us in the local units.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, as an administrator for a local unit, it is one of the most profound things, because it says to me that you care, first of all, and that you're listening and you're ready to take action, and it means so much. And I want the viewers to know that. It's very, very important, and one of the few that does that.
I want to say, when you come from local government, that was one of the things. I wanted to have that relationship with my federal government. And so when I received this opportunity to serve in Congress, it is a priority of mine. And I just want to say that strengthening that, having that relationship so that I can actually take care of the needs of the community is important.
I've never once heard you complain about this, but I want to bring this up because I find this amazing personally. So just the travel schedule that you take on, I think oftentimes people don't realize that you're still a human.
I am human.
We know that much is for sure. And that just the part of the job that requires you to travel from Detroit to Washington, D.C. and back constantly must just be exhausting. And I was hoping you could speak to that a little bit.
So my commute to work is a drive to the airport, getting on a plane, going through security, getting on a plane, landing, going back, being picked up and being driven to my office. It is, in the winter months, it is very challenging because you can hit any kind of weather. There's delays in planes. There are long lines in security. So I encourage everyone to get clear. It is amazing.
I just did it, by the way.
Oh, you
and
should.
Yes.
Everyone should get clear, because you don't even have to, sometimes you travel and go, oh, where's my license and all that. Your fingerprints and your eyes are used to identify you.
So you still have to go through security, but
Yes.
you get to go through the clear line to get,
But I will tell you, I'm in my 5th year in Congress. I have to have a place to live when I'm in D.C. And the challenge is that you have to go to D.C. to do the work.
Yes.
But your constituents are back at home. People with young families, I really have empathy, I guess, or sympathy for them, because if you keep your children in school at home, you're not going to see them for 4 days a week. And if you take them to D.C. to go to school, you still have to go home and meet with your constituents. So you're constantly away from your family. That's a toll that a lot of people don't recognize. The government does not pay for your family to travel back and forth. So you personally are paying for your family to spend time with you. I tell my husband, He has to come up at least once a month or so to spend some time in DC. The schedule.
Yeah.
So this is another thing. You get up around 7 in the morning to be at 8 o'clock meetings, and you're going to go until at least 9 o'clock that night. It's not like it's just, chilling and laying out.
Yeah.
And it is, we talk about the constant flying. I'm on a plane at least 2 times a week.
Yeah.
At least. And sometimes I have to fly home for something and fly right back.
Yeah.
Because there's something big here at home. And my voting record is very good because that's important to me. I'm always over 98%. And thank God I've been healthy so I can do that. But think about the people who live in California.
Oh, I can't imagine. I always do because I think
5-hour flights. And then the ones in Iowa or Wyoming, they have to connect. And in the winter months, you may or you may not connect. And the people in California, they lose a day at home because they have to fly in early the day before, the night before,
Right.
so that they can be in place for votes.
Incredible. And,
Yes.
I do have 2 young kids. So for me, just this job I do, I
Yes.
can't even imagine, which requires very little travel.
Yeah.
Can't imagine. It's been something I've always been just in awe of because it really is amazing. You are a native Detroiter, born and raised here. You understand the area, and that's really a perfect segue into, I was going to ask you a little bit about your background because I do think that your background is very unique in Congress. You were the mayor of a pretty medium-sized large city.
Yes.
And you bring a very unique orientation to Congress. And
Yes.
I have to think that helps you in the day in and day out there.
I started this statement, and it's been used now all over the country, but a pothole does not have a RD on it. It's not a Democrat or Republican pothole. It's something we need to fix. And that, having that perspective in Congress was so partisan and so polarized that we have a responsibility to the taxpayers, to the citizens of this country, to get it done, to take care of it. So we may want to approach it differently, but how can we get there so we can take care of the problem? And so sometimes I'm in a room and I'm in the middle of debates or committee hearings, and I just see things like, how can we move forward? Because when we're in local government, we really are not talking about whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. We're talking about the problem. And so I'm so happy. I came from school board, started there, then city council, then mayor, and had served on the U.S. Conference of Mayors for mayors all over the country.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my springboard to go into federal government because we shared so much as communities around the country that we needed the federal government to fix.
I wanted to use this opportunity to bring in the topic of infrastructure. You and I have talked about this a few times in terms of mass transportation infrastructure, but as you just mentioned, potholes and roads and bridges and things far goes beyond that. Where are we at in the federal system? We've talked about an infrastructure bill with this administration, but where is that right now, and what in local government? Because we're hungry, obviously here, especially here in the state of Michigan, for assistance from the federal government. But where are we, and what can we expect going forward?
Well, there was a meeting at the White House, and the whole purpose and schedule of the meeting was to discuss infrastructure, to make sure that the President, the Senate, and the House were all on the same page. As you know, that kind of blew up, and the President walked out, and nothing happened. We have a Transportation Infrastructure Committee, which I served on last Congress, and this Congress I'm on Appropriations, which is Transportation and HUD that I serve on. So we are investing the dollars within our budget to ensure that we put more money into the infrastructure. Now, I will tell you this, everyone wants to talk about the potholes, but I am more concerned, and my priority is our water infrastructure.
Absolutely.
People used to ask me what keeps you awake at night. It is not what a lot of people think would. We flush our toilet and we have drains in the streets and everybody think it's fine.
Right.
But I know underground, our infrastructure for a basic human need, which is water, is deteriorating. We're holding it together with a Band-Aid. Every time you hear of a water main break, the public should know that's a failure in our water system.
Yes.
And so many of our drainage systems are combined sewer and water. So when you have those massive rains, and we seem to be having more and more of them around the country, that water the capacity is not there, and that water backs up in our basements. And then you talk about lead in pipes. Look at what we went through in Flint. How many schools have we put plastic bags over the drinking fountains in schools because there's lead there? And so I have been very passionate about ensuring all bills that say infrastructure includes water infrastructure.
That is just, especially for a city administrator,
Yes.
that's music to my ears, because I 100% agree. It is a constant conversation, especially here in the city of Oak Park. We maintain our water and sewer infrastructure, and yes, it's a combined system here, what I would consider a premium level. Our sewers are 100% televised, et cetera.
Good.
But because we are part of a much larger system, and in fact, here in the Detroit area, we're one of the largest water and sewer systems in the country here.
Yes.
We can't account for the community that's down the road from us or whatever else, and it's sight unseen. People aren't paying as much attention. But thank you for including that. It's so critically important. Mass transit. So we touched on that a little bit. What do we need to get done here? What needs to happen in the metropolitan region?
We need regional leadership that will come together. Unfortunately, the last time we had to go to the people to ask for support for a mass transit system, two of the leaders of our region said they didn't want it and actively campaigned against it. We've got to get to yes. And whatever those concerns are, we need to address them. But no area in this country has really had the resurgence that's sustainable without mass transit. Mass transit, so many people like to think of it as young people who don't want cars. I live part-time in Washington, D.C. So many of the people and employees and young people don't even buy a car.
Right.
And just think about the expense. If you're a young person entering the job market here in Michigan, in Detroit, you have to have a car. You're going to pay one of the highest insurance rates. You're going to have to put gas in that car. And you may be at the entry level or lower level of income, and let's not talk about the student debt that you have to take care of.
Right.
And you haven't paid for housing or done anything else. So we have an opportunity to transform southeastern Michigan to make sure that we are investing in an infrastructure. And so many people forget, they just think about the young people, right? Senior citizens. I was in Denver, and whenever I travel, I try to take the mass transit system just to get a sense of how it's being used. And so it's this rail that goes into downtown Denver. And all along the way, there's seniors getting on at different spots. And it's kind of like, hey, and they're all together. And they're just being ruckus and, just having a good old time. And I said, what is this? And they said, we ride the mass transit to our favorite restaurant, and we all get together. So when so often, and everyone's going to experience this, where our senior and elders and our families, they reach a point in time where they won't be able to drive anymore.
Yeah.
And taking away the keys is almost like taking away their independence. Because in Michigan, we don't have a mass transit system. Now there's Uber. That's pretty much all we have.
Yeah.
But we are going to have to attack this, and I think we will. I think this next time we go to the voters, we're prepared to do a better job.
Yeah. So let's pivot now to this idea of this gerrymandering that has gone on, especially here in the state of Michigan. Now, I will say that when you're bringing all of these local leaders together in your meetings with them, I'm always encouraged a little bit because I get to interact with people that I normally wouldn't because your district is so all over the place.
All over.
So what do you see coming from that? And, you know, are there advantages to it, disadvantages to it? What are your thoughts?
So first of all, before we begin, I want to really lay out how challenging my district is. So my district starts in the Grosse Points. I have all 5 of the Grosse Points. I have Harper Woods. Then I have all of the east side of Detroit. So I have Indian Village. I have all of downtown Detroit. I have an international border. I have Mexican Town. I have Palmer Woods. I have, then I cross 8 Mile. No, I have Hamtramck.
Yeah.
Hamtramck, which is a very unique and just amazing place. If you want the best Middle Eastern food, Hamtramck.
Yeah.
So then we cross 8 Mile, Roanoke Township, Oak Park, Southfield, Farmington Hills, West Bloomfield, Kego Harbor, Orchard Lake, Sylvan Lake, and Pontiac.
Yeah.
Lathrop Village. So when I tell them that, they're trying to picture it. It's literally like a snake. Some call it a dragon. What is the advantage of it? I have one of the most amazing districts. Pretty much any issue that's going on in the world, other than farming and mining, and I do have a salt mine in my district.
Yes.
I have it. I have fresh water. I have a city that has the most lakes of any city in the country, fresh water. We have some of the wealthiest communities in the country,
Yeah.
and some of the most challenged. I have one of the largest urban centers in the country. The diversity, any way you want to worship, you can do it in my district.
Yeah.
You know, you name the religion.
International border.
Yes.
Epic proportions, really.
Yes. And one of the largest trading points in the country. We're second in the United States, other than Mexico.
Yeah.
So here we are. I am engaged and responsible for so many things.
Now, you're involved in so many different committees and meetings and different things that are going on. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of your assignments. And I want to get into appropriations a little bit because as you know, I think it's great that right on your webpage, you have a button that people like me in local government can click on, and it's an appropriations button to say, this is what I would like to get funding for, and it tells me that you're going to take it seriously and you're going to run it up the flagpole and see what happens. But talk about the assignments that you're currently working on and so forth.
So I'm in my 3rd term in Congress, and I serve currently on appropriations, and the subcommittees are THUD, which is transportation, and housing, which are very important to our district. Yes. The transportation needs, the Bill grant, which would be which was the old Tiger grant, community block grants, all those things that I know are needed in the communities. And I serve on the Commerce, Criminal Justice, and Science Committee. So I'm funding NASA. I'm funding the National Institute of Health Research. Also, I'm funding reforms to criminal justice. I just had a advisory meeting this morning talking about women being incarcerated. I want to be really clear. We cannot sustain the rate of incarceration that we have in America. We are building prisons and not schools.
Yes.
It costs $38,000 to imprison someone and $8,000 to educate them. And then we say we don't have money for education. We have all these people locked up now for marijuana, and now we're saying it's legal. We're going to have to look at these things.
Absolutely.
But that's one of my subcommittees. And in addition to that, commerce, so trade, oh my goodness. As this country goes through this volatile internal discussion on tariffs, on how we fund our our partnerships with trade. So I'm really in a very powerful position. They have what they call A committees. Appropriations is the A committee. And I will tell you, I'm a Democrat. I'm proud to be a Democrat. But what we are able to do now that we're in the majority is to show what we're committed to. What do we feel should be a priority? So clean water, and that will be on the website as well, how I fought to get funding and money in for different priorities as a result of what you all have said.
Absolutely. And I wanted to just go back to the Appropriations Committee. I think a lot of times, especially in government, we use these phrases to describe activities, government activities, that oftentimes people don't truly understand.
Okay.
And I wanted to emphasize this because that you are on the Appropriations Committee means many things, but it means that you are in a room working on the federal budget. There's not many people that can say that.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that think they are working on the federal budget, but you are actually in that room working those numbers with staff and others, and that having you on there, I can't stress enough, in my opinion at least, is so critically important for us for that reason and some others. Did you want to speak to that a little bit, though?
You know, one of the phrases I use to describe what appropriations, why it's so important, if you want to know the values, if you want to know the things that are priorities in any government setting, follow the money.
Right.
You know, for all the people who saw Hamilton, you know, you want to be in a room where it happens. Appropriations is the room where it happens. And everyone is sending notes to us, please take care of this, please take care of that. But I'm in the room where it happens and able to be a voice for the people.
Recently, you were one of the founders or the founder of the Black-Jewish Caucus. And I think this is such an important group. And I wanted you to speak a little bit to that because this is just as of really recently.
Yes, we just announced it 2 weeks ago. So I'm so excited about this. So I have the rich fortune of being in a community, being the mayor of a community with a strong Jewish and a strong African American population, coexisting, living together. Growing up as an African American and studying civil rights movement, we know throughout the history, one of the groups in America who have stood with the African American community has been the Jewish community, giving their lives along with African Americans for the right for civil rights. And so it's this big movement in this country that is very disturbing to me. This movement of hatred and racism and anti-Semitic and white supremacy. And I have been noticing this attacking of each other, this fighting internal. And I sat down with some members of the Jewish community and Black community. I said, the way that dictators and the way that people who want to destroy democracy, they do it by creating this separation between people that have so much in common. They create this hatred among you so then they can come and take over. We have always locked arms on issues in America when it comes to discrimination of anyone. We are all very passionate about the rights of our religious freedoms. And so I sat down and said, in Congress, I want to show leadership. I want us to come together, bipartisan. So this is Democrat and Republican, Jewish members of Congress, African American, Black members of Congress. And I can tell you the excitement, because so many people said, absolutely, we've always been together. And I'm excited. We actually launched it at the National Jewish Congress Conference in DC. We'll be having our first kickoff. And one of the things that, you know, we kind of toyed with, because me growing up and having responsibility in this large Jewish community that we have here in Michigan, I said, you know, there's Jewish soul food and there's Black soul food. Why don't we kick it off with a Jewish and Black soul food reception.
Good, yeah.
So it looks like we're going to move down that line, but we're going to have some serious discussions. So we will be focused on issues in the United States, legislation, laws, policies that are directly related to being a Jewish person in America, being a Black person in America. And so I'm excited about it. I love the energy. We're going to be including national groups, national Jewish groups, national African American groups. And we're going to be coming to the table talking about these things. What's really happening? How can we use our voice to keep our country united?
I wanted to talk more Oak Park specific. And we have a couple of affordable housing unit developments happening here in the city of Oak Park. And I have been amazed at the media coverage over these because I think people are taken back that we are so embracing these kinds of developments when many of the other Oakland County communities are not.
Exactly.
And you know, my response is always, we want to be a full community, meaning have a place for everyone.
Yes.
And be sustainable. What are your thoughts about that, especially because of the committees you sit on? What are your
Yes.
thoughts about that?
So I sit on housing because I know how critical and how important it is for America to thrive. Basic human needs, you need shelter, food, and water, right? I toured during construction the Jefferson Oaks project.
Yeah.
I have been raving about that development to my colleagues in Congress. Every time I talk about how do we take care of the least of these, how do we ensure that in America all ships are rising? So it's a couple of things that happen in Jefferson Oaks. To reuse, to have the reuse of a vacant building, a school building,
Historic skill building.
historic, and to refurbish that to a housing complex. It is amazing. We're going to be cutting the ribbon. Opening this up, I was so impressed. I was just supposed to do a walkthrough tour. It took me forever because I was so excited. And then when I look at how we identify the individuals who qualify to live there, and do you know the quality of life to be able to live in a brand new facility, the townhouses, they're being built for families, and then talk about how you are including the neighbors who are already there.
Yeah.
How are you making sure that their concerns and needs about, this is my community. You can't just come in here, Mr. City, and build something. And these people, where are they coming from? And how are we going to ensure they're part of the community? And it's based on a community. It's based on resources being given in that new development. It's really checking so many boxes. And I have to say to Oak Park, first of all, to have the vision, to be able to go get the resources, the partnerships that you have engaged in, you are literally being a region, like you said, in Oakland County. But I'm making sure for HUD that we get some national recognition for what we're doing here, because this is really, really what we should be doing.
It's really, truly amazing. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And for Oak Park, everyone that's listening, it's teamwork. It is the city, it is the county, it's the state and federal government. We need all hands on deck. And I'm here today to let you know that my hand is on the deck.
It absolutely is. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wow, what a great show. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.